is the middle of the night and it was stormy. She was found in a heavy coat, a nightgown, and wool socks. She's a celebrity. Is she gonna go to town in her nightgown and socks? Natalie was a show pony from pretty much the moment she was born. She did 18 films as a child. She first appeared in Happy Land in 1943, and then another big movie that she did was Miracle on 34th Street. Now what's interesting about Natalie is she had a major fear of water. So much so that she was afraid to go in swimming pools or even wash her hair. And when she was younger, she actually went to a psychic. And this psychic told her that she would become a big star one day, and she did. But she also told her to beware of dark water. Her mom continued throughout her childhood to tell her, don't forget the psychic said you die in dark water, like would torture her with that. So great parenting skills. And then she had another incident with water when she was about 10 years old. She was on the set of The Green Promise, and there was this bridge, and this bridge was actually rigged to collapse for whoever was on it to fall off and fall into the water below. And Natalie was obviously really terrified of this, so her mom told her that the bridge was not rigged to go down, that she would just go across the bridge. So she trusted her mom and she did this, and the bridge broke. She fell in, she broke her wrist, and she was terrified of water after that. And I really question her mom a lot, because her mom did not even take her to a doctor to get her wrist fixed. She literally just had to like let it heal on her own. The other person that we are going to be talking about in this story is named Robert Wagner. He was a famous actor. He's almost old Hollywood status. He was signed with 20th Century Fox. He was also in A True Story of Jesse James, The Pink Panther. He played one of the henchmen for Dr. Evil in Austin Powers. Natalie and Robert Wagner actually met when she was only 10 years old and he was 18. They met in the hallway when they were both working in the same studio. As soon as Natalie turned 18, the pair began dating. And what's interesting is the pair was actually set up by 20th Century Fox as, you know, just like a couple for publicity, but they actually did fall in love. So the two got married in 1957, and they had this obsession with water again, which is so weird. They actually got married in a friend's yacht off Catalina Island, and they actually fell in love on the ocean as well. So water was always a thing for them. They even had sort of a logo, and it was like two birds above each other, like two seagulls. So the ocean was always a thing for them, even though Natalie was terrified of the water. Now we are going to jump to the weekend of Thanksgiving of 1981. They had actually bought a boat, and it was called the Splendor, which was named after one of the movies that Natalie did. At the time, Natalie was working on a movie with Christopher Walken, and it was called Brainstorm. And Robert was actually doing his own project at the time called Heart to Heart, and the three of them decided to go on this little boat weekend together. Now, jealousy had always been an issue in Natalie's relationship with Robert. He had always been jealous, and the whole time that they were on the boat, Natalie and Christopher Walken were having a great time together, laughing, joking, and Robert Wagner was just seething. He was so jealous. And that night they docked at Avalon, and they went offshore and drank a ton, the three of them. They came back to the boat, but the two of them started fighting, and multiple people saw this, and it seemed like Natalie was actually the instigator from some of the witness perspective, which these are witnesses that were on other boats near them, so it's kind of hard to say how much they could have actually seen. That night they were specifically fighting because Robert wanted to move the boat somewhere else, but it was really, really late at night, it was dark, and there was actually a storm. So Natalie was fighting with him because she just wanted to keep the boat where it was. I mean, she was terrified of water, so the idea of traveling around on water in the dark really freaked her out. The fight continued. She got so upset she wanted to get off the boat and go back to shore. So she asked Captain Davern, who was their employee, to take her back to shore, and he did. The next morning she woke up and she was in a better mood. She said, let's go back on the boat, let's see if I can smooth things over. But later that day she ended up going back to a bar with Christopher Walken. Robert Wagner showed up, and he apparently was really upset. According to witnesses, he was angry because the two of them were acting like they were having more fun without him. He was just insanely jealous. When they left, they were super intoxicated, so intoxicated that the bar owner had to call the harbor master and tell them, hey, look, there's these celebrities, there's Natalie Wood, Robert Wagner, and Christopher Walken. They're coming your way, just so you know. And when they first got back onto the boat, they went into something called the salon room, so it's just kind of like a lounge area. And Natalie actually started making a pot of tea. Everything seemed to be fine, and then according to Captain Davern, this is hard because Captain Davern waited years before coming forward with this information. But according to him, Robert randomly got so angry that he picked up a wine bottle and then asked Christopher Walken if he was trying to his wife. So obviously Natalie got really upset because that's not only just ridiculous, but it's embarrassing to her probably. So she left the room. He follows her. Christopher Walken goes elsewhere, doesn't want to be part of this. And according to Davern, he could hear them fighting so loudly that it sounded like someone was being assaulted. Captain Davern actually went down to the room. He knocked on the door, and Robert Wagner answered the door and he said, "Go away." Multiple witnesses heard them fighting from other boats, and then they all have the same story. Suddenly the fighting just stopped.
Moments later, Robert Wagner was standing there, leaning his back against the back of the boat.
And he just said, "She's gone. She's missing." What? Off of a boat? That is such a weird thing to randomly come up with. So Robert said, you know, I'm sure she just went to the town, she went to a bar or something, let's not freak out. And Captain Davern was like, well, let's turn on the searchlights, let's make a call that we have a missing passenger on the boat. And Robert Wagner was like, no, we don't want to do that. We're not going to do that. He actually opened up a bottle of liquor and had Captain Davern sit down with him and drink for an hour. After an hour, Captain Davern's like, dude, she's not back. We haven't heard from her. I have got to make this call. So he's like, okay, yeah, I guess we should probably make a call now. He knew about her being missing at about midnight. The call didn't come in that she was missing to the Coast Guard until 1:30 a.m. Every time that there is an odd lack of reporting or a hesitation to report someone missing, there's something sketch going on. That's such a red flag. So the next day, Natalie Wood's body was found by a lifeguard, and the dinghy was found about a mile from where her body was found. Which a dinghy, if you don't know, is like a little lifeboat that they tie onto a boat in case you have to evacuate the boat. She was found in a heavy coat, a nightgown, and wool socks. Now this is really weird because she's a celebrity. Like, is she gonna go to town, get on a dinghy, and go to town in her nightgown and socks? Like, this makes no sense. So this was pretty much immediately ruled an accidental drowning. The story that they believed was that she wanted to get off the boat. Maybe she was mad at Robert. So she took the dinghy, untied it herself, got in it, and left. And this made no sense because, first of all, she's terrified of water. This is the middle of the night, like midnight, and it was stormy. Why would she leave with a jacket, socks, and a nightgown in the middle of the night? And what's also weird is she never asked Captain Davern to untie the boat for her. Literally the night before, she asked him to take her to town, and he did. Why wouldn't she just ask him to do that again? When the medical examiner looked at her body, there were fresh bruises on her. The coroner believes that they were probably made by someone else and they happened before she drowned. There was an autopsy report that showed that she was drinking probably several glasses of wine. I'm sure she was pretty intoxicated. But even then, would you just get in a boat if you were that terrified of water? Like, I've done things when I'm drunk that are stupid, but I've never done something that I'm like terrified of or have absolutely no knowledge about doing. Her family kind of has mixed feelings on this. Her daughter does not believe that Robert Wagner had anything to do with it. She's maintained to this day that she believes he's innocent, that it was an accident, and he continued to care for her her whole life. Her sister, on the other hand, has always believed it was Robert Wagner. Robert had a different theory. In his book, he said that he thinks that she was trying to tie the dinghy closer to the boat because it was banging against the boat, making too much noise, and she couldn't sleep. So she went out there to tie it closer to the boat. Yeah, right. She's a celebrity who has her own captain to do these types of things. Like, why would she go out in there and do this? She was terrified, especially of dark water. And doesn't it make you think of psychics a little differently when you hear that they predicted that not only would she be famous, but she would die in dark water? So, like I said, the death was ruled an accidental drowning. There was never really too much going on with it after that. Wasn't making a lot of news after that because it was kind of just a dead end. Everyone sort of accepted that she just died in the water. I mean, that's what her daughter believes. She drowned. It was all an accident. But then in 2011, Captain Davern came forward and told the truth and said that they had been fighting. He smashed a wine bottle. There was so much fighting that he thought there was assault going on. So he comes forward with all this information and it really switches everything up. Then in 2012, the coroner actually stated that she looked like a victim of assault, and they changed the status from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. After that, Robert Wagner was considered a person of interest, mainly because he was the last person seen with her. There's always been this kind of cloud of suspicion around him since then, but they announced there were new witnesses coming forward and that the details of Robert's story just do not add up. They just want to talk to Robert and he has refused to cooperate with them. So don't get confused, there's no charges yet. They just believe that they're closer to understanding what actually happened. The The biggest part that's not adding up for them is that no one heard a splash of her falling in the water and no one heard the dinghy start up and leave. The whole story just really makes no sense, and I really hope that they figure out what actually happened. Very, very interesting story. No one quite knows. There's so much confusion around this. Christopher Walken has remained extremely silent about this. But that's it for me today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye.